Hello, friends, foes, and undecided schmoes. Today I was just going to do a bit more of a laid-back video about names and identity, a bit shorter than my last one on marketing, a bit more kind of light, a bit less academically rigorous, and I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about, people's relationship to their names, their identity, their self-determination, and that sort of thing. So, this is coming from a place where I'm in a lot of spaces where people have chosen their own names that I'm using for them, whether it be screen names or queer people who have changed their names to be more gender affirming, more masculine or feminine or gender neutral. The only real times I notice someone doing something like that in the real world, actually changing their name in the real world, is when there's an extreme circumstance. So either you might have been traumatized by the person who named you and you want to escape that trauma, so you change your name. Or you were born with a very masculine name, so you've changed your name to be, more affirming to your gender. So a lot of people settle for the name given to them by their parents, which is fine. I mean, it's a useful signifier to denote who you are talking about, and for that, literally anything would do the job, as long as everyone in the environment agrees that this is your name for the purposes of identifying you. But it kind of downplays the amount of thought that has gone into a name by the parents. A parent is often considering things like the lineage and the heritage behind a name and the history that that name has within the family. Also often considering what virtues does this embody, what cultures does it come from, what languages does it come from, what did the original root word of the name mean. There's a lot of thought and a lot of effort and a lot of meaning imbued into the name by the person giving it. And I think that that is incredible, but I also think that it is very, very limited. It's also underappreciated, I think. I mean, a lot of people, once again, view their name as a kind of neutral thing. It's just a useful signifier for people to designate who they're talking about, right? And that downplays the amount of effort that the parents put into it, which is sad. But why does this discrepancy exist? Well, a name is part of someone's identity when you think about it. It's the primary way that people will refer to you, or at least designate that they are talking about you. And it has greater meaning to it, it has greater depth to it. I'll use my name as an example. My old name was Peter, and that came from the Greek word Petros, which means stone. It's a biblical name, it has a lot of history on both sides of my family tree. A lot of cool stuff. And also, coming from the Greek word for stone, it embodies virtues like strength and resilience and all those kind of hardy, tough virtues. And it's also a little bit nerdy. So all of these things are excellent. I'm very, very glad that all of this thought went into my name, but there's only one part of all of that that I resonate with, and that's the being a gigantic fucking nerd. And that's fine, my parents couldn't have predicted that I wasn't going to resonate with traditional ideas of masculinity. They couldn't have predicted that I wasn't going to resonate with biblical attachments to my name. They couldn't have predicted my connection to my heritage being as weak as it is, etc., etc., etc. From birth, a parent obviously does have to give a name because, a child can't come up with this name by themselves unless every child is going to end up being called Dada, Mama, or maybe screaming. So I understand the need for parents to give a name to their child, at least for a time. But the issue for me comes from the fact that once the child is older, entering into adulthood, a young adult, teenage, what have you, they have the ability to understand what they want to embody, what values they resonate with, and therefore what name would be more suiting to them, what name they would feel most at home with. And for me, that name was Poppy, because the name feels energetic, the word feels enthusiastic, just by virtue of having the term pop in it, I think. And I also have a lot of history, a lot of personal history with the name, with it being tied to a D&D character, which I use to explore different aspects of my emotional self and different sides of my kind of gender identity. So I've got a lot of personal history with this name, and it embodies a lot of virtues that I seek to embody. Is it a typically feminine name? Yeah, and I don't resonate with femininity, but I don't resonate with masculinity either. I'm in the middle, and the fact that I was coded as masculine, the fact that I'm taking a feminine name now, feels like I am meeting in the middle, so it feels very gender affirming as well. But regardless, that name feels like it is mine. It feels like I own it, it feels like it is tied to my identity, it feels like it represents me as a human, rather than being a simple signifier. And I would liken it to employee numbers as well. You know, let's say I'm number 813184. If someone said 813184, come over here, I would know who they're referring to. The number is a useful signifier for designating who you're talking about. And for me, that's all Peter really is. When someone compliments me on the name Peter or I seem like a Peter, I don't care because I don't have any personal investment in the name or in what the name embodies. When someone compliments the name Poppy on me, however, I'm over the fucking moon, because they are actually complimenting a part of my identity that I decided on. And there is a lot of beauty, I think, that is lost, and a lot of potential euphoria that is lost by the fact that people are just willing to almost settle on these names that just do the job. Because a name can do so much more than just be a neutral signifier. It can be a source of euphoria, of happiness, of identity, and of really making someone belong. So, what I would really encourage everyone to do is to reflect on their name. Reflect on what it means, reflect on what they want to embody, what cultures you're from, what cultures you resonate with, all this sort of stuff, and to come up with a name that you really feel represents you. Because it feels so much nicer, you feel so much more connected to your sense of self, you feel like you have determined a core component of yourself. And that's awesome, and it's something that I wish more people got to experience. If it turns out that your parents are just, like, completely psychic and they just hit the nail on the head, it's still worth it to think about it. Because once you realize that, oh, this actually works really, really well, you're going to feel more connected to that name and to that piece of your identity because you've thought about it, because it's become real to you. And that's all. I just would encourage people to think on their names more. I just want to see people determining more aspects of themselves instead of just settling for what other people have determined for them. But that's about it for this one, and hopefully I will catch you in the next video. See ya!